We are back. We're full system testing now with our Penta-Carbon exhaust and our flash. And I wanted to just sort of stop and show you what we did. Now, DynoJet, I like power commanders. They're really simple. They're really easy for the owners to mess with. But there's no power commander available for the Ninja H2 SX. So we got a little tricky with Don Guhl, and I wanted to sort of point out what we have here. If you come over, of course, today's new bikes have different power modes. So right now I'm in full power mode, and that means that if I have 93 octane pump gas, I can go out and this bike will make as much horsepower as it knows how to make in that mode. Well, what if you want to go racing? This is a higher compression supercharged bike, so we didn't want to use MR12. So basically what we did, if you switch the bike to the M mode now, and this is how we have it set up right now. M mode, instead of meaning medium power, now means MRX02 power. So we can have two maps in the ECU at the same time. Now if the owner wants to go ahead and put it down into low power mode to get optimum gas mileage, or if it's raining or whatever, the low power mode works just exactly like it ordinarily would in stock application. It's just mapped for our Penta-Carbon. So as you can see, it's a little cool in our dyno room. I'm going to go ahead and put this thing on M mode and go for a ride, because we do have MRX02 in the tank, and we'll see what we get. Alright, so as I mentioned, it's sort of cool in the dyno room. The conditions are really good. So we're cheating a little bit here. I wouldn't expect you to get these exact same results if you're in Florida in the summertime, but 260 horsepower on MRX02. At the flick of a button, pouring it in, completely stock engine with all bolt-on stuff. That's enough to scare the hell out of some old geezers riding these bikes. I could go ahead and laugh at that because I want one myself. But anyway, let me pull up here. Now, we're not completely finished with the mapping yet. There's still a little bit more to be done. But to give you an idea, with the Penta-Carbon and pump gas, our previous best was 255. You can see that the MRX02 really made a big difference in the middle. If I can come over here, we're looking at, yeah, 7 or 8 horsepower in the middle. Not so much up top. But like I've mentioned before, this is a higher compression supercharged engine. If I put some MR12 in it, instead of getting 7 or 8 horsepower, we'd get 15. The problem is then we got to worry about blowing up the motorcycle, and we don't want to do that. So the MRX02 is a safer bet. So Whether you're running pump gas, whether you're running the race gas, these things are for real. They'll go much faster than most of the people that own them want to go. So I just thought you'd like this, and wanted to drop in and just sort of show what the progress is with the full system. We're going to put this thing back together and give it to the owner and really just scare the hell out of him and terrorize all his buddies that think they have fast bikes. So anyway, until next time. You didn't think I could tell you about all the horsepower we made with this bike without doing a comparison to this bike, did you? So I started, and it's one of those things that just happens, right? I pulled this bike off the dyno and was pushing it back here to put it back together. It's going to go home to its owner. And I noticed something. The SX, compared to the ZH2, the SX, when you're pushing it, it feels top heavy. And so I started thinking about that. All right, well, why would this bike be top heavy compared to this one? There's 50-pound weight difference, but if you look, there's a whole bunch of stuff up in here. And then also you've got these big metal grab rails so you can put your hard bags in there. And I'm sure that this is all mounted to a structure, of course, that's designed to take the weight of a passenger and the bags. Whereas if you look at the ZH2, it's quite a bit cleaner. Definitely doesn't have any big casting and a whole bunch of stuff back here. And then if you start looking up in here, it's just much more compact. So I decided to set these things here and just sort of do a side-by-side comparison between the H2 SX and the ZH2. I also have, just for a reference, luckily, we have an original H2 here. So one of the things I want to mention is, first off, frontal area. We talked about this before in our Jixzilla series, but if you look at the front of this bike, it's an 1.5 inches wider, according to Kawasaki's little cheat sheet I printed here. It's an 1.5 inches wider than the ZH2. But you can see it's much taller. It's designed for more wind protection, of course, because it's a full fairing bike versus a naked bike. That's really obvious, but let's see what the difference is. There's an $8,000 difference in price between this bike and this bike. So where did Kawasaki save that money? Well, the first thing I noticed was every H2 that we've seen up to now comes with steel braided brake lines. Whereas if you look at the ZH2, they have standard rubber brake lines. So what I did, Kawasaki, if you go to Kawasaki.com, they've got this really nice deal where you can compare vehicles. So let's just go through this. The seat height on the ZH2 is about 1/4 inch shorter. It feels quite a bit shorter than that for some reason. The 50-pound weight difference we just talked about. Let's get into some nuts and bolts here. The engines are basically the same, and the reason I brought up the H2, if we come over here to the H2, it's narrower than the H2 SX. It's also about 5 inches shorter than the H2 SX. And the engine, this engine is a race engine. It's got oval exhaust ports, more aggressive camshafts, different cam timing, and it also has 50mm throttle bodies, which we'll talk about here in a moment. Now, in a don't believe everything you read on the internet type scenario, while I was doing my research, it came to my attention that the Kawasaki website is currently incorrect. It says that the ZH2 has 36mm throttle bodies, when in fact the H2 SX and the ZH2 both have 40mm throttle bodies, whereas the H2, the original H2, has 50mm throttle bodies. Besides that, and you know, we're under the impression that the engines are the same. As you saw, we made stupid horsepower with this bike. So the big question is, will we be able to make the same kind of crazy horsepower out of this bike? We think so, but we won't really know until we give it a test. I can tell you this, no matter what, this bike is going to be unrideable in stock form without the controls on to keep it rideable. It's going to be a hoot. Engine-wise, there is one other thing, and I don't want to go all motor nerd on you here, but the H2 has 11.5 to 1 compression ratio. Both of these bikes have 11.2 to 1 compression ratio. So why would the H2 have such a lower compression ratio? Well, the biggest reason, I believe, is to control heat. A bike that has more compression is going to build more heat, but it's also going to build more low-end power. As far as top-end power, and well, we could debate this stuff for days. If you consider all these bikes are 998 cc's. Well, these are 11.2 to 1. If you take you take 998 divided by 11.2, you get 89 cc's. When you do the same thing with this motor, but divided by 8.5, you get 116 cc's. So that difference is 27 cc's. Well, what is compression ratio? Compression ratio is the difference in volume with the piston at bottom dead center versus the piston at top dead center. So the H2 has 27 cc's more of volume at top dead center, which in a normally aspirated situation, less compression, less power typically, but in a supercharged application, it can actually force more boosted air. Would you rather have 27 cc chunk of aluminum on your piston, or would you rather take that 27 cc's and pack it full of compressed air and fuel to make more power? That's one of the reasons why this bike makes so much more than these bikes. So the next thing, when you look over at the over here, you've got really nice forks. These are Brembos, even though they're labeled Kawasaki. Multiple adjustments, and in the rear, same thing. The rear suspension of the H2 SX, you've got a bunch more adjustments, and the entire suspension is controlled by the electronics on this bike. Where you come over here, anytime you see Brembo, you just, wow, I love Brembo all the time, no matter what. So it's got really good brakes, but if you come over here and look at the forks, for instance, your adjustments down here, you can see where they could be put in, they're just not. They left that out. And then if you look at the rear shock, it's more of a, and you won't be able to see in here, but it's more of a conventional rear shock that you've got your basic rebound dampening, compression dampening. Where else are we here? The rear brake actually has a larger diameter disc, and when I first saw that, I thought, wow, maybe that's for wheelie control, because some guys like using the rear brake to keep the wheelies under control. But then I started looking. This is a single piston caliper where it's a Nissan, and where the H2 SX is a dual piston. So of course you'd want a larger disc to be able to get the bike slowed down. All right, so continuing on here, rake and trail. 4.1 inches of trail for all three bikes, surprisingly. And as far as the rake itself goes, it's really, really close, but the Z has slightly more rake. Now, if we move on to wheelbase, this is big. 1 inch. There's a 1 inch difference in wheelbase, which is absolutely huge. So the big question is where did they take that inch away? The Z is shorter. I'm going to test a theory here real quick. Just grab my trusty tape measure, come over here. All right, looks like we're about 23 1/8 inch. And come over here. This is not scientific, folks, but it gives you an idea. All right, 24 1/8. So that's what I suspected. What they really did was they took that inch exclusively off the back of the bike. So what does that do? It makes the bike more nimble. It makes it handle better. It also makes it wheelie prone. And even if you're not wheeling, it's going to float the front wheel, so having just a tad more rake makes sense when you're pulling length off of the back of the bike. Combine that with, they put 2 additional teeth on the rear sprocket, and you basically get a supercharged unicycle. And that's really about it. I mean, I wouldn't look at this motorcycle and say, oh wow, you know, I'm not going to buy it because of anything that I just told you. They've actually done a really nice job of getting you what you need to have a really nice bike at a great price. And you know, for the guys who do drag race, we don't only deal with drag racers, we deal with everybody. But for the guys that do drag race, the shock's going to go away, the wheelbase is going to get lengthened. So the things, you know, in stock form that make this bike, you know, different from this one, I believe this is really going to turn out to be a nice bike once we get it all stretched out. So where do we go next? Well, I have this beautiful plan to document the exhaust procedure, all the different things that we do. The Flash is going to be big, and we've already got Don working on that. We've got a couple ECUs in his hand, Don Guhl, to try to get this bike de-restricted so we can see what's going on. The problem we have is right now we have the coronavirus situation, so we're going to do what we can, the best we can, and bring it to you. For you impatient types, let's say we want to make some BST carbon fiber wheels. Man, that would be great, Brock. Yeah, but the country of South Africa is shut down, so wheel shipments will be delayed. We also work with our friends at Hindle on exhaust. The country of Canada is shut down. Exhaust development and shipping and production will be delayed. So anyway, doing the best we can. I hope you enjoyed this, and we will try to bring you as much information on this new killer. I really do like this bike. It's grown to be one of my favorites already. We're going to bring as much information as we can, and until next time, I'm Brock from Brock's Performance. We'll see you then.